What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Culture 316 podcast. I'm one of your hosts and producers, Jordan Ahisi. Join with
the Ratatouille exterminator, Mo. What is up, people?
That's too many syllables for a host name. But anyway, thank you guys so much for... I can't hear you. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again for another episode. While Mo gets the mic situation situated, I'll just ramble off our normal I can hear you now. Our pre-show kind of announcements and proceedings. So first things first, if you've been following us and supporting us, thank you so much. If you're watching on YouTube, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We've been growing in subscribers as of late, and I'm really, really loving it. Thank you guys so much to everyone who watches the show. If you're watching or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, anywhere podcasts can be streamed, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Be sure to rate us 5 stars because that is how we gain traction, how we get more traffic and attract more listeners. So be sure to rate this show 5 stars. There's been a lot that's been happening in pro wrestling. Halloween Havoc just ended. We just saw Sting and Ric Flair in AEW. There's been a lot going on, but we're not going to waste any time, and we're going to get into the first topic of the show. So earlier today, WWE has officially announced their first ever German premium live event for August 2024 at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The name of the event is called Berlin, the Bash in Berlin, and I can read off a little bit of the press release. WWE, part of the TKO Group Holdings, today announced that Bash in Berlin, the first ever major WWE premium live event to be held in Germany, will emanate from the Mercedes-Benz Arena in Berlin, Germany on Saturday, August 31st, 2024. So far, that is the only details that we have gotten. That press release you can find on the corporate section of the WWE website. I mean, obviously, I think it's too early to kind of figure out what can happen, right? Because it's October. This is going to happen in August, obviously next summer. But I just kind of wanted to get your take of how big this is for Germany. And do you have any early predictions as far as like what we can possibly see at this at Bash in Berlin, if you will?
Yeah, it's a lot of bees, bro.
That's a lot.
Well, first off, I found it kind of cool that between last year and this year, both AEW and WWE are trying to like take over Europe. Like it's cool. Like I don't know why it took till now, but I think it's pretty cool that like they're like giving back to their fan base and capitalizing from being over there. So I think it's pretty awesome. It makes me wonder like where else in Europe they're going to go afterward. Like, are we going to see something like in Spain or Italy or something like that? Like, I feel like there's so much to play with, especially with the themes. You definitely could do better than Bash in Berlin because I just don't like that name. However, I don't quite know what I would expect out of it because, like, in my head, like when I thought about how they booked like Clash at the Castle, and that's so many C's. That's their thing, I guess. They just like alliterations. But, no, like, you know how like they spearheaded that with like Drew McIntyre because it's like, oh, like, you know, he's a Europe native. I wonder who they would use to represent Bash in Berlin. Like, I guess that's like my next question. Like, would they go with who's German that we have in the WWE? Do we have like someone that's on the main roster that's German that you can name off the top of your head?
Yes, I do. Gunter.
Oh shit, yeah.
Gunter.
Are they all German or just Gunter?
They're not all German. First of all, let me look up to see if Gunter's actually German. But continue with your point.
No, I actually want to hear why you would want to choose him.
My apologies. He is Austrian. He is from Vienna, Austria. That is my bad. I think Ludwig Kaiser. So much confidence. Ludwig Kaiser is from Germany. But yeah, keep going. What were you going to say?
No, it's just that like that's how they chose to lead it last year. They wanted to go with someone that, I mean, it's essentially from the continent of Europe. So right. I feel like that's what they're going to lead with. But are they actually going to like let the person that came from Europe win? Because last year we like put all our eggs in one basket with Drew, and then it was like such a letdown. Although, like you just said, Gunther is not. I think you could still do something with him since he's on like this really good streak.
Mm-hmm.
They're like building him to feel important, and that's like a nice way I feel like that you could, even though I feel like he's doing really well and being established, it's just like if you want to like kind of isolate him and take him out of like the mid card range, I think it's like pretty big to like
Mm-hmm.
kind of build the pay per view around him a bit and kind of move him over to like the heavyweights.
Mm.
In my personal opinion, I think that'd be an interesting way to book it. Um, but I don't know, like, what way would you choose to book it if you were WWE?
Man, even though Gunter isn't necessarily German, this is someone who made his name in Germany through the promotion WXW. Germany is a very, very big hub for European wrestling, just like London is. And while Imperium has members from kind of every, or I shouldn't say every, but different parts of Europe, I think Imperium has solidified themselves as the European stable, kind of like how we saw the Hart Foundation kind of be like Canada's stable back in the 90s and the 80s. I think that's what kind of Imperium means to not just Germany, but all of Europe. And so I can definitely see Gunter playing a very, 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 very big role. I can even go on record and predict that I feel like if they're bringing this event to Germany in August of 2024, who's to say that Gunter can't be main eventing and going for the World Heavyweight Championship? I feel like it's more than doable. I think it's more than possible. He's already kind of heading in that direction because he's currently the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time. And by that time, I think that he'll probably be making his way and trying to make his impact felt in that kind of world heavyweight title picture. So I definitely see Gunther playing a very, very big role. As it pertains to just kind of the significance of the event, I just feel like WWE is continuing its streak of solidifying themselves as an international company. I mean, like in the past, 18 months, every time they've gone international, they've broken records, whether that be Puerto Rico, Clash at the Castle, obviously Saudi Arabia. And I think they're just kind of continuing moving forward. Money in the Bank, like they're continuing moving forward with just solidifying themselves and taking advantage of the fact that they have a worldwide fan base and just the ability to kind of create these memorable moments and shows all around the globe. And now that, we know that essentially there's going to be another kind of SummerSlam because August 31st isn't too far away from where SummerSlam is. They're going to essentially have two SummerSlams in 1 month, which is nuts when you think about it. Two stadium shows in 1 month is insane. But I think it's great. I think that it's great that Germany is getting a Big Four type of show. And I'm very, very eager to kind of see where they go next. But I want to know how everybody else feels about this, about the Bash at Berlin happening in Germany, August 31st, 2024. Let us know in the comments below how you feel about WWE taking over Berlin. But we're moving on because last week, actually, PWI released their annual PWI 250 women's list that lists the top 250 wrestlers, women's wrestlers in the world. We're not going to list all them off, but we do have a top 10 here. And I wanted your opinion on this. And we want to know if you, and Mo, I want to know if this number one is the number one. So, number 10, we have Jordan Grace, who currently is with Impact / TNA Wrestling. We have number 9, Camille, who was previously with the NWA. We have number 8, Willow Nightingale, who is with AEW / Ring of Honor. Number 7, Deonna Purrazzo, who is with TNA / Impact Wrestling. Number 6, Athena, who is with AEW / Ring of Honor. I don't even know how to pronounce the number 5. I think it's Tam Nakano. I don't know where she wrestles. Number 4, Jamie Hayter. Number 3, Bianca Belair. Number 2, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm not even going to try. And number 1, Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley is the number 1 women's wrestler in the world according to Pro Women's Illustrated. So number 1, I want to know how you feel about this list. And number 2, is Rhea Ripley number 1?
Okay, so what I learned over the past couple PWIs is that I cannot go based off of like right now, right this moment. I feel like they create this list like in the middle of the year for some weird reason. And if I go based off of that, and that it's not so much like what's happening right now exactly at this moment, I'm not upset that Rhea Ripley is number one, nor am I really surprised, because I feel like she's accomplished a lot. Like it's interesting that they have a 4-man stable, but out of the 4, they're trying to spearhead it with the woman. They utilized Rhea to establish Dominic, even in spite of him getting booed out the building still. What makes you pay attention to him is how enticing this little BDSM setup you have is between them. She did have a phenomenal match with Charlotte at WrestleMania. That probably was one of my favorite matches the entire night. I don't think she defended the belt enough, but I mean, again, was she the first to hold that new belt, the new version of that belt? I think so, right? Like when they traded off the belt, she essentially got to hold on to the new version of that belt.
Talk about the
right?
AEW women's belt, right?
I'm talking about Rhea Ripley.
I'm bugging. Yeah, I think Rhea was.
Yeah.
Rhea was. I don't know why I thought AEW. Yeah, I think Rhea was the first person to hold that belt.
Right. Like she was there to establish a new title. And I don't think she defended it that much, but she's definitely been showcasing it across all 3 brands as much as possible. She's been getting involved in the men's feud. And I still feel like based off of the way they are so bold about having her like stick her nose into like the Bloodlines business, and they have her messing around with Jay. They have her in Paul Heyman's face. They have her semi-threatening or playing in Roman's face like she's his equal. I feel like they're really trying to not just establish Rhea Ripley. I feel like she already is established, but I feel like they're trying to do something with her where they try to bridge over intergender wrestling, and we're gonna see it eventually. Like someone's gonna get tired of her shit, and I would not be surprised if Roman spears the fuck out of her. So I don't think that like as far as wrestling in the ring, you know, she's at the top of this list. I think that what she's doing in general, because she's doing so much, you know, and she's everywhere. I'm not surprised she's number one, and I'm not surprised she's ahead of Bianca, although Bianca has been working her ass off. And I wouldn't be mad if they put Bianca at number one, but I see why they're going with Rhea. And as far as like half the list goes, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I don't watch Joshi wrestling like that. And y'all know how I feel about Impact. I don't really watch Impact. I know that's more Jordan's avenue, but I pay attention to WWE. I pay attention to what's going on with AEW. So based off of where Rhea's placement is, Bianca, Jamie, Athena, and Willow, I'm actually not upset with the placements. Bianca, I deservedly should be towards the top with the amount of work she's put in. Jamie Hayter, wasn't she injured for like several months?
She's still injured. I think she's still out right now. So
right, her placement is the reason why I be thinking they make these matches. Sorry, not matches. They be making these lists in the middle of the year. Because like I remember her in the beginning of the year. I don't remember too much about Jamie Hayter like towards like the second half of the year. Like my focus goes towards people like Sheeta being back in the picture, Toni Storm, you know, being so interesting as she is in this little 40s, 50s character she has going on. But is she deserving to be on the top? I mean, if you go off of her work in the first half of the year, yeah, she did a pretty goddamn good job as being AEW champion. Athena, while I don't keep up with every single one of her matches, that bitch be wrestling her ass off and viciously. Oh my gosh. I saw like some clip of her power bombing the fuck out of this poor woman. And I was like, damn. Because the thing that the eyelash her, I knew that she fought a little dirty, but god damn, she fucked that bitch up. Oh my god. But I know she's been holding it down as far as the ROH title goes, and it needs to get is love and recognition. I don't think enough people pay attention to her ROH, and I understand. But I feel like she's been holding it the fuck down, very much deservingly so. But also Willow, I feel like it's so special.
She is.
I think she's special. I think she's great at what she does. And And I know that earlier on in the year, there was like that whole controversy going on with Mercedes not getting the belt, because obviously an injury happened, and then they gave it to Willow. But I feel like she did her job. She carried it as well as she could. She made that belt, that very new belt, look fucking great. She looked great with it. She put on some goddamn good matches. I love the fact that they're giving her her flowers, and it obviously makes me extremely happy to see a black talent on this list. So as far as that goes, for what I can actually comment on, I'm not upset at the list. But I know that you watch Impact as well. So how do you feel about the WWE, AEW, and the Impact placements?
So, first of all, you need to watch Impact. I'm going to give you my whole spiel at the end of the show when we talk about TNA/Impact.
Okay.
Well, now I'm not even going to give you my whole spiel. I'm just going to give you a little bit of it because me and Banks are going to do a little in-depth, but you'll hear a little bit of my spiel.
Look out for that.
I agree with the placement. I agree with the placement of this list. The difference between Bianca and Rhea is that Rhea is the most important woman in wrestling. Bianca is the face of the WWE. And I feel like those are two very, very different things. When I see Bianca Belair has been working crazy. And I feel like she has been positioned as the face of the company for a reason. She puts on great matches. She has great mainstream crossover appeal. And she's just been making moment after moment after moment after moment after moment after moment in the past year. However, when I look at Rhea Ripley, I'm looking at someone who is doing something that has never been done in women's wrestling, and that has honestly have been years in the making. And I'm gonna say why. So, has she defended the Women's World Championship to the extent that we would expect her to? No. Undoubtedly no. And to be honest, I think it's because there is just now starting to be tensions in the women's division. And from a storyline perspective, they're just now investing so that Rhea has legit threats. And I feel like for the first time in a long time, Rhea has believable, legit threats in that division. So you have Nia Jax, you have Raquel Rodriguez, you have Shayna Baszler, you have Zoe Stark. So you have legit opponents, you have legit threats, and I feel like that wasn't always there. On the flip side of that, with Rhea and what she's doing with the Judgment Day and the fact that she is going face to face with Paul Heyman and she is being publicly acknowledged as the leader of a faction. Like, it's been on record saying that Rhea Ripley is the leader of the Judgment Day. Now, mind you, you have Finn Balor, who's the first ever Universal Champion in that faction, who is infamous for leading the Bullet Club. You have Damian Priest, who is one half of the tag team champions, along with Finn, and is also Mr. Money in the Bank. You have Dom, who is the WWE NXT North American champion. Usually, when you have a collection of male talent, it's usually the man with the leadership experience that is considered the leader. In this case, Finn traditionally would be the leader of the Judgment Day, but he's not. Finn is the leader of easily the most influential faction of the past 10 years in the Bullet Club, and Rhea is the one that's front and center. That hasn't been done before. And mind you, Judgment Day ain't no scrubs. Like, are there things that I'm not necessarily thrilled about with the Judgment Day? Perhaps, but at the same time, like, they're kind of on fire right now. I think they're the hottest faction in WWE.
I agree.
And the fact that Rhea is the leader of it all, this is a first for a woman in WWE. We've seen a woman be the mouthpiece. We've seen a woman be a valet for a member. We've seen a woman kind of like be a part of the faction as someone who just kind of dives into the women's division, but we've never seen a woman front and center. And I think that that's something that's very, very important. And I think that that kind of positions Rhea to be number one, in addition to the fact that, like, Rhea's sex appeal and Rhea's kind of like a interest from people outside of WWE kind of as a sex symbol kind of positions her as one of the most important women on that roster. So I feel like all those things considered, I can see why you put Rhea at number one. That doesn't necessarily mean that she's the best wrestler or that she's had the best matches, but there are so many different factors and so many things that she's doing that a lot of women haven't done in WWE history that can position her to be at a place of importance that not a lot of women have had. And thus, I think she deserves that number one. Now, as it pertains to everybody else, there's a couple things. Athena, right? Well, let's start with Jamie Hayter, right? Jamie Hayter has been injured for a good chunk of the year, so I don't know why she's this high. Athena has been doing some incredible character work. For anybody who's watched Ring of Honor, you know she's been having great matches and she's been doing incredible character work. And so I thought she would actually be 5. I thought that she would go at 5, but I'm not mad at 6 either. She's doing incredible work. As far as Deonna Purrazzo and Jordynne Grace, Jordynne Grace was out for a little bit as well because there were rumors of her signing in other places, and then she just came back to TNA/Impact. Deonna Purrazzo, obviously one of the best technical wrestlers in the world, and she has solidified herself as a cornerstone of TNA's Knockouts division. Willow, I'm glad that she's at number 8. Camille, I'm glad that she's at number 9. And I'm actually curious to see where she turns up because I don't think she's with the NWA anymore either. Overall, I think this is just a solid list. I'm not going to get too deep in my bag with TNA and Impact right now. I'm going to save it because self-control is a fruit of the spirit. But I want to know from everybody else, how do y'all feel about this top 10 of the PWI Women's 250? Let us know in the comments, but we're going to be moving on. So the next big thing over the past couple of weeks, and I've been actually meaning to discuss this specifically with you, because if I've seen it, I know you've seen it. We've seen pictures, we've seen videos of WWE crowds that are sold out and AEW crowds that seem to just be getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And it felt like it was just yesterday where the shoe was on the other foot, where WWE didn't have that much of an attendance thing going on, but AEW was selling out. So I wanted to know from your perspective, has AEW gone cold? Is AEW kind of like on the decline right now, or is this just kind of a natural part of their growth?
Okay, so I was actually having this same discussion with Zaire on the phone recently, and I don't like giving this man credit because I don't like him. However, I have to be honest because that's what we do on the show. We're honest. Mm-hmm. I feel like this decline happened at the same rate Phil Brooks had to leave AEW. And not for nothing, Phil is still up to date, their biggest signing. And I'm sorry, I'm a huge Edge fan, but I still think Phil was the bigger signing. You know, he's the signing that people got on board with AEW for in the first place, that just wanted an alternative to WWE. And they thought, what's the better way to spearhead this than to get the guy in that trashed this company on the way out and was wrongly fired. You know what I'm saying? And we were waiting for it for years. We finally got it. And not for nothing, although I don't like this man, he definitely moved the ratings needles. There's a reason why they circle back to Chicago constantly. And when Tony got rid of Phil, the crowd was not having it. The crowd was not having it. There's that portion that can't stand Phil. I'm definitely within that. I guess you could say minority here, and I'm gonna say minority because it's reflecting in the seats. Because I don't think, to me personally, AEW puts on a bad show. I'm actually entertained by what they have left over. I think that outside of the women's division, what they do with the men, I find fascinating. So I think there's a portion that has to do with Phil's departure. And then there's also the other half that I think has to do with what's going on in the world, and then people being very upset with Tony with the booking. And maybe some people are just not following AEW or supporting them momentarily because of what's going on. But I still think it started with Phil leaving, that the numbers just started dwindling. And it's noticeable. It's painfully noticeable. It was so noticeable. People were taking pictures during Edge coming out, and he was trying to do his little thing where he runs side to side and he does like the thing with his arms and shit. And there was no crowd there to like do that to. It's just empty. Like normally they like to show off when they actually pull good numbers, and it's just empty seats. I really think it has to do with the fact that, all right, like you guys kind of lost that one thing that we were looking for that kind of made us invest. Because not for nothing, you have people who are like who flocked over to AEW who were just regular WWE fans. You know what I mean? And they were just looking forward just to see Phil. And you can't expect everyone to support indie wrestling. Like there's actual pro wrestling fans that support all forms of pro wrestling. There's people who just are used to the E formula, and they're there to see some of their faves that were wrongfully done by WWE being placed somewhere else where they could thrive. And I just feel like they had a lot going on with Phil. He's not there anymore. So some people are just like, well, fuck it. What's the point of me watching now? I don't even like the rest of these people like that. I want to see Phil mix it up with so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. That's what I think the theory is. And I think it's going to take a much bigger signing than Mr. Adam Copeland to boost these ratings. But it could also be because of business. Business always goes up and down, up and down, up and down. I still think that it's pretty odd that since this man left, and then we're wondering if this man's going to pop up Survivor Series, why are the receipts dying now? Because shouldn't it be the opposite? Shouldn't it be the fact that you lost somebody should create like more just like speculation on what they're going to pull out their ass next to make up for this big ass loss? The seats shouldn't be empty. It shouldn't be. It actually should be the opposite. So that's what my theory is. But if you have a different theory, I would love to know, Jordan. So lay it on us. Why do you think the seats are empty?
I think it's a couple of things, right? I feel like AEW, when it comes to All Elite Wrestling, they have a great product. But I feel like one of the attractions or one of the things that kind of gathered people around AEW was the fact that it was new and that it was fresh, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that honeymoon period was extended a little bit longer than we had predicted because CM Punk was there. I feel like the honeymoon period ended, and then when the honeymoon period ended, CM Punk came in, and a whole new honeymoon period started. Because now, not only do you have AEW, you have the reintroduction of CM Punk into the world of wrestling. And then his first conflict happened, and then he went away, and then he came back. And then when he came back, it was kind of like a finishing off of the honeymoon from the first run. But by the time that was almost done, he was back out the door. But regardless of what people say about CM Punk, like when with Punk on Collision, they were doing 800,000, sometimes 900,000, sometimes 1 million. Last rating I checked was somewhere between 300 and 500,000 people. It's not that hard to figure out what the difference is. Punk is a draw. And there's a reason why. Like, it's kind of like, you know what? I'm going to relate it to a basketball player. It's like dealing with like a LeBron James or Kevin Durant or someone that people perceive as like difficult, which I don't think that they are. But if they are, it's like there's a reason why you endure the headaches. It's because these guys produce. These guys equate to jersey sales. These guys equate to ticket sales. These guys equate to nationally televised games. You can say the same for CM Punk. Say what you want. The man moves tickets. The man moves ratings. The man moves merch. And there's not a lot of people who can do it at the level that CM Punk has done it in the past 10 to 15 years in pro wrestling. So guess what? You got rid of Punk. You did what you had to do. The vibe is back. We good. Vibes are great backstage. Vibes don't equal good ratings.
Or good business.
Or good business sometimes. So it's just like you gotta take the good with the bad. You want to get rid of CM Punk, fine, but expect them ratings to drop. And by the way, I don't think that this hurt like his AEW departure. I don't think that it hurts Punk because I think that a lot of people knew how effective Punk was. Like if people didn't think that Punk was a draw, then why was Impact offering him a contract? Why was there even rumors of WWE being interested in him or talking with him or having talks with him? You don't have talks with someone whom you're not interested in doing business with. So it's like Punk is a draw, and I think that the world knows that he makes a difference regardless of where you stand with his character. But to answer the question, I think that AEW has gotten cold. I think that this is kind of a natural stop in their growth and in their progression. And now that the honeymoon is over, you have to figure out new ways to generate interest. That's kind of where I stand.
I agree with it.
But I want to know how everybody else feels. Let us know in the comments below. Is AEW getting too cold? Is it getting too stale? And why is it that they're getting too cold and too stale? But we're moving on. So the next little topic is that WWE has announced a new reality show called Superstars of Tomorrow. It will feature Montez Ford and Bianca Belair. According to SE Scoops, the company will follow Bianca and Montez as they incorporate themselves in the new NIL program that was introduced. The series, which will be on Hulu, will take a look at collegiate athletes hoping to become the next WWE superstar. So, how do you feel about this move? How do you feel about Bianca and Montez being on this show? How do you feel about a program like this being a thing? Can't even hear you, bro.
Oh, there we go. There's my green button. All right, I'm back, y'all. Okay, yeah. So, of course, everyone knows that one of my favorite wrestling couples ever is Bianca Belair and Montez Ford. They're like the perfect couple, like the most perfect situation possible. Like you have Montez Ford, who I believe like came through like the military and stuff like that, and then you have Bianca Belair, who's just like this well-rounded athlete. She's just good at everything that she just fucking does. It's great. I think that it's awesome that they are giving her such a John Cena like career, that they're placing her as being like the face of something like this. Not only just her, but Montez. You know what I mean? And it's really cute that like between the two of them, they kind of lead with like Bianca being the semi a little more dominant, like the star of the two of them. Not that Montez is not a star, but it's just kind of cute where it's just that like they treat them like a couple. They let everyone know that they are a couple, but like Bianca's like the major star. I think that's pretty awesome, and I like the idea that as you put it, it's like a competition to become a wrestler, right? Where people showcase their athleticism. I think that there's no other better person on the women's roster to have represent this than Bianca. I mean, for crying out loud, she was a track star. She did CrossFit. She done like powerlifting and whatnot. Again, wrestling came to her so naturally, and she wasn't someone who grew up watching wrestling. She was just like a homegrown talent. And there's something that like I think is like important about that aspect, because she wasn't someone that like went through the system to be as good as she was. She just had the it factor. So I feel like she'd be a great person to be like a mentor to these people. I'm not sure too much about Montez's career, if he like went through like any type of indie circuit or did he just land it with WWE. But I think that it's pretty cool to have them both represent as a unit. And I think that it's great to have the two of them, considering where they're at and the points of their career, mentor other young talent and evaluate them. I feel like it works. I think it's fun. I think it's fresh. It's been a while since WWE had a competition show. I think the last time I was aware that they had a competition show was Tough Enough.
Tough Enough, yeah.
And like, I don't know when was the last episode Tough Enough. I think the last time I watched it, Chelsea Green was on that bitch. That was like such a long time ago, maybe over a decade ago. But that is, I think it's fun. And I think game shows and competition shows, for me at least, are super fun. I know I'm definitely going to be tuning in for this, but I think it works. I think it definitely works. And it kind of almost makes me think, like, is she almost getting like the Bella treatment? Like, you know, they had the Bella twins be posted everywhere. You know, they were part of music videos. They had their own TV shows. They had their own spinoff of a TV show. They had their own lines going. Are they like doing that, but reintroducing it with Bianca? You know what I mean? You know how John Cena and Nikki was like that
Yeah.
it couple? It's kind of like
Yeah.
they're doing that with Montez and Bianca. And that's,
I
to me, fucking lit.
I
What?
think so. I think
Mm-hmm.
so. I think so. I don't even know if you can call it the Bella treatment because it's just one Bianca, right? It's
Right.
not Bianca and somebody else. It's just Bianca. But I do see it. Like first of all, I'm not even going to try to echo what you just said because what you said was what you said, and it made perfect sense. And I'm just going to piggyback off of what you're saying by just saying this. Like Tez and Bianca are just sexy people, man. Like they just look good. They just look good. They're in shape, well spoken, well dressed people. And I feel like when you're that good in the ring, when you look that great individually, and when you're just as you, they're not problematic. You don't hear anything about Tez. You don't hear anything about Bianca. It's like you position yourself for so many opportunities because you're just not in the mix. You get your bread, you go home, you know what I'm saying? Like you do what you got to do and you get up out of there and you're not involved in anything problematic or toxic. So I think that's one of the reasons why they are getting this treatment. Second of all, I think that this is great. I think this is a great opportunity because I feel like competition shows, reality TV is another great way to generate interest in the WWE. We've been talking about the NIL program and the people that have been coming up through NXT for so long, and I feel like this is a great way to promote because it's gonna eventually promote NXT, right? It's a great way to promote NXT. It's a great way to have a fresh approach to WWE programming. And I think it's a great way to kind of show how important Bianca and Montez are to the company. Mind you, they were also there for the ringing of the bell at the New York Stock Exchange to celebrate the merger of WWE and UFC. So they hold these guys in very, very high regard, and rightfully so. So I think it's a great move. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do with the show. But I'm not surprised in one bit. But I want to hear what everybody else has to think about Tez and Bianca and this new show on Hulu, because I think this is like their second show. They have like their own relationship show, and then they have this show. So listen, they're getting their coin, but let us know in the comments below how you feel about them. But speaking of WWE, and speaking of CM Punk, so there have been rumors and reports of WWE speaking to CM Punk. Some rumors and reports say that the talks have stalled, but recently it looks like they have added additional seating to Survivor Series in Chicago. And so now more seats will be made available. I don't remember the last time this was a thing. But considering that they're adding more seating to Survivor Series in Chicago, I wanted to know, is CM Punk actually? Is this a thing? Do you see them? Do you see CM Punk making a return to WWE at Survivor Series in Chicago?
Dude, I've been said since last podcast that I really think they're playing us. Like, I think that is just so unlike them and so bullshit of them to just flat out tell us before Survivor Series, considering that you guys are having a full-fledged war. All right. You and your competition company are having a full-fledged war. Like Tony Khan was out there last week angrily tweeting, all right, all over this NXT versus freaking AEW, for crying out loud. Okay. And then you're just going to let us know that, oh yeah, like he rejected it, or we rejected them. I'm sorry. They want to enforce that they rejected him. That Punk came crawling to them and that they rejected him. I don't feel like that's like WWE to just make those type of announcements. I really feel like you wouldn't go out of your way to have one of your biggest pay-per-views of the year, and it's in a very popular wrestling town, or wrestling city, I should say. And again, you just know that your competitor lost their biggest star. That was the main and the only draw they had left going for them, as you previously stated 2 segments ago. I think that this was all a setup. They wanted some people who, don't read him between the lines like I do. I feel like they wanted people to just think, oh, yeah, he's not coming. But they want to shock the crowd because I don't put it past Punk to be petty. He's extremely petty. I think he's petty, but I also think that money does talk when it comes to him.
Absolutely.
And I don't also put it past Triple H or Shawn. I don't put it past the two of them just to stick it to Tony Khan and laugh in his face to take Punk in, even if it's for a short time. Because WWE does that. WWE will make signings or have people come in for one-offs and stuff like that just for the shock of it, even if it's a one-time just to get a ratings boost for even just a fucking week. So I think that this is all set up to shock us, quote unquote. Personally, me, I would just stay quiet if I was them, but this is the route they wanted to take. I really think he's coming. And I feel like they're making it painfully obvious that he's coming. Because who else are you going to have at Chicago? You need a surprise there. You need a surprise at some sort. And there's so much you could do with Punk coming in back. I'm pretty sure that they probably went over a few agreements, what he can do, what he can't do. You know what I mean? I don't know if he's going to come back as a uber babyface. I think that would make sense. I think that would make sense because the AEW crowd went out booing Cody. He just came out being the ultimate babyface of the company immediately. Immediately. And he's getting a John Cena treatment that he prayed for just because he betrayed AEW. We just fucking love him. Well, a lot of people love him, I should say. I've been like Cody. Okay. That's my civil rights activist. But Punk, if he came back, automatically he would be beloved because you came back to the hometown. Two hometowns, Chicago and WWE, where it all started. You know what I mean? I feel like this is part of the game. This is part of the setup. If WWE does sign him, they're up big time. AEW's in trouble. I don't know who they would possibly sign to make up for it. I don't think there's anyone that you could possibly sign from fucking Japan to help make up for this. I really don't. So to me, I'm 100% doubling down on last week's pod where I think Punk's coming out. There's no way. There's no way. What else are you putting those seats in there for? What else? For who? For who? You got a better answer than I do?
I don't. I'm going to be honest. I think to kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, I think that it's really not a matter of if or even when. It's just a matter of just us waiting and seeing what's going to happen. I mean, if we're being very, very honest, WWE in the past, specifically the past 12 months, has been putting on a masterclass as to how to get under the skin of Tony Khan. It seems like every little thing that WWE does, Tony got a tweet for it. And I personally think that we're going to see the largest Twitter thread known to man on the night of Survivor Series when CM Punk debuts at Survivor Series in Chicago. And I feel like this is part of the WWE agenda, which is to bring in AEW stars, make them feel like superstars, look like superstars. It happened with Cody. It's happening with Jade. It's happening with Brian Pillman Jr., even though I'm going to get to that when I get to that. And I think it's going to happen again with CM Punk. And I feel like the way that they treat these four talents is going to serve as a domino effect, and we're going to see a lot of talent coming over from AEW to WWE. But as far as Survivor Series is concerned,
you think
what?
Yeah, that some people that were ex-WWE would just come over, or even the homegrown people that were from AEW would just hop over to WWE. That would be insane. Tony Khan would have a heart attack and then face plant to a mountain of coke that he won't even snort.
Listen, I think people underestimate. People think that people aren't loyal to company; they're loyal to their best relationships. I feel like when Cody left AEW, a big chunk of their heart left, and you can tell because there were so many people in the back that connected and resonated with Cody. Jade was one of them. And when Jade talked about her signing to WWE, she's attributed, her relationship to Cody. as one of the reasons as to why she signed to WWE. Now, I don't think that it's a far-fetched idea to say that there may be some other people that have really good personal relationships with Cody Rhodes, that if Cody were to, say, hey, why don't you come over here and try it out? It's cool over here. I can see Ricky Starks making the jump. I could see Ricky Starks making the jump.
If Ricky Starks goes, please give me Legacy Part 2 with Randy, Ricky Starks, and some other person.
That would be tough. That would be tough.
Book it, Trips. Book it. I'm sorry, you're making a point. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But it goes to show you, like, I feel like when it comes down to the whole AEW WWE game, I feel like there are a lot of people who underestimate the fact that Cody has built a lot of great relationships in AEW. And because of that, all Cody needs is just a couple minutes to talk to a couple of talents. And I feel like we're going to see a change of heart in a lot of guys. And we're going to start seeing people jump over to WWE. I don't think that that's a super far-fetched idea. But back to the main point with Punk and WWE, I think that CM Punk will be making his WWE return to Survivor Series. I think it's bound to happen. And to be honest, I'm excited. I'm excited because I know that Hunter's going to give him a live mic. And he's going to be like, yo, go off. Giving him, let me tell you something. I don't care what nobody says. I don't care what public statement Tony Khan makes at the top of a show. You give CM Punk a live mic on WWE TV and tell him to go crazy. He's going to say some stuff about the Elite. He's going to talk about Tony, and Hunter's going to let him. Mind you,
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like, I'm pretty sure Punk got to work it out with some people in WWE, but like, there is no tension that is hotter than that between Tony Khan and the Elite and CM Punk. And if you give CM Punk 15 minutes on a live mic on the beginning of Raw the following Monday,
I feel like Triple H has to come out too, though. I just feel like you need to tie him into that. Just considering, no, because Stephanie McMahon has ran her mouth so many times. Can you hear me? My thing keeps going.
I can hear you.
Got it. It's just
now I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. We back on green. Anyways, now Stephanie McMahon was so petty while CM Punk was gone. I feel like it would just be fitting just to integrate them, even if it's like a little comment that he makes. Just even if it's like a little spicy clap back to Stephanie or to Triple H, but it just comes full circle that they made up because, you know what I mean? Like, he went over to another company, he still essentially got played. I'm going to say played with quotation marks. I feel like, yes, he should take a jab at the opposing companies, but for just long-term storytelling, you need to pick up with the fact that, yeah, didn't he like debut on AEW calling shots at WWE? Like, you kind of had to acknowledge that too, Phil. I feel like both part has to be. But regardless, he's going to be looked at as being the babyface of the company. He would. Just automatically, just because you almost single-handedly just decimated AEW. You're the main reason why people draw it in. You're the main reason why people are checking out. I feel like you need to tie both ends. Both ends of the knot. So you're gonna have to eventually. I'm not saying like kiss their ass necessarily, but you do need to acknowledge what you said when you came out talking shit. You gotta acknowledge that, but you also gotta call out the Elite and just make it sting. Make Tony wallow. That's the best way to do it. And there's so much you could do if he shows up for Survivor Series that you could book all the way to WrestleMania. That's going to have Tony on his fucking toes. Like, there's going to be a fire underneath his ass to figure out something quick. So, yeah, Punk has to show up, man. Punk has to.
The T is that CM Punk really just wants to have a main event at WrestleMania.
With
I
who?
feel like, I don't know
With
with
who?
who, but I feel like that's always been the goal. Punk has always wanted to main event
But who would
WrestleMania.
you feed him?
If they make amends and if they could do business, I'd feed him Seth Rollins. I'd feed him Seth. Seth has a good match with anyone, so I'd feed him Seth. But I'm not even going to get too deep into this bag. Let us know how you feel about Punk Survivor Series. Is it possible? Is it impossible? Let us know in the comments below. But now we move on to the last topic, and a topic that we're going to touch on a little bit briefly, that I'm going to dive into a little bit more in depth with my guy Banks on a follow up pod.
It's a
Because this
quickie.
past Sunday on pay per view, TNA / Impact Wrestling produced its annual biggest event of the year, Bound for Glory, live from Chicago. And at the end of the show, announced that on January 13th in Las Vegas, Impact will rest in peace and TNA Wrestling will return with their next show, Hard to Kill. Once again, January 13th in Vegas. Scott D'Amore, who is the president of Impact / TNA Wrestling, was able to do a little Q&A and talk a little bit about the move, or a little bit about the rebranding or the return to TNA Wrestling. And there's some exciting things that are on the horizon. I just kind of wanted to know how you felt, first impressions about Impact Wrestling going back to its origins and back to its roots as TNA.
Are you sure I'm qualified to answer this question?
First impressions, just first impressions.
I mean, I think it's pretty dope because the people that love Impact now loves it for like the classic way that they set up Impact. Although they're doing okay now, I think that they had their glory days in like what, I don't know, around like 2009 ish. I feel like if they go back to that type of standard, it'd be lit. It'd be lit. And similar to what we said in the group chat, bring back the what was it? Was it a hexagon?
6-sided ring.
Yeah, I don't know why I was about to say octagon, but that's not definitely not no fucking 6-sided. Yes, the hexagon ring needs to come back if y'all are going to do that. I think it's pretty cool. I'm with it. I'm not gonna have as much dialogue as you because you are the impact specialist over here. I want to know your full-fledged take.
So here's my take. I feel like it's gonna be light. Impact / TNA deserves a lot more shine than it gets, because all the things that wrestling fans complain about, you don't get those complaints with Impact / TNA Wrestling. Let's talk about it, right? Oh, Tony Khan doesn't know how to book the women.
He doesn't.
Scott D'Amore and Gail King have been killing it with the Knockouts division. Trinity is a world champion because of that booking. So there's that. Oh, WWE doesn't have a legit women's tag team division. You know who does? TNA. Oh, WWE doesn't do tag teams that well. You know who does? TNA. Oh, AEW and WWE, they're so whitewashed. The diversity. You know who doesn't have that problem? TNA.
I promise you we're not
TNA.
sponsored.
Huh?
I said I'm just letting them know we're not
Yeah,
sponsored.
this is
by
not
TNA.
an ad, by the way. This is not an ad. I have to let you know that this is not an ad. But like, when we look at what's been happening in TNA and Impact over the past year and a half, they just brought in Sonny Kiss. They have Giselle Shaw. You have Jordan Grace, Deonna Purrazzo. You have Trinity. You also have Mickie James. Like, you have such a diverse bed of talent between the tag team division and just the singles women's division. And they booked them so well. And then you look at their main event scene and you look at their tag team scene, and everything has been consistently good over the past year and a half. And I just feel like we need to just give it more shine, and we need to give it more credit than it deserves. Once again, I'm treading very, very lightly because I have some hot takes that I'm going to drop with Banks, but I just felt the need that we needed to put that out there. As far as them going back to TNA, I would love for them to bring back the 6-sided ring, but I'm very, very interested to see how they carry on the legacy of the name TNA. Because when you think of TNA, you think of AJ Styles, you think of Samoa Joe. So who is going to be the next AJ Styles? Who is going to be the next Samoa Joe? Granted, there's no one who can be them, but who is going to have that significance in this next era, in this next generation? But I want to know how everybody else feels. Let us know the return to TNA wrestling. How do you feel about it? Comment below. Let us know. But that concludes our show for today. So thank y'all so much for tuning in. And once again, we will see y'all next week.